Good evening and welcome to Monday Night Politics Meet the Candidates, presented by the Dallas Examiner. The Dallas Examiner has presented Monday Night Politics Meet the Candidates for over 12 consecutive years before major elections. Monday Night Politics Meet the Candidates is a series of forums, not debates, but forums designed to inform the community of the qualifications, experiences, and platforms of candidates for elected office. Our sponsors are nonprofit organizations. You can view the forums on www.dallasexaminer.com and Facebook Live. Also, you can view it on your the Dallas Examiner app. Tonight, and well, rather for this series of forums, our moderator is Charles O'Neill. Charles is president of the Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce. He was the first editor of the Dallas Examiner and was here when my father started the paper in 37 years ago. Again, I want to thank you for attending Monday Night Politics and thank you for your support.
Welcome back to this October 10th edition of Monday Night Politics, hosted by the Dallas Examiner, a forum that was designed to illuminate and educate the viewers and readers of the Dallas Examiner newspaper, making them a more informed electorate. Tonight we have with us candidate for the incumbent, but a candidate for Dallas County Court at Law, number one, Judge Demetria Benson. Good evening. How are you this evening?
Good evening. I'm doing well. Thank you.
You know, I think we talked about this during the primary, but what is County Court at Law number one?
County Court at Law number one is a civil court. It's kind of unique in Dallas County. Usually county courts at law are courts of limited jurisdiction,
Okay.
which means that you can only hear cases of a certain dollar value.
Okay.
Dallas County has unlimited concurrent jurisdiction with the civil district court, so
Okay.
we don't have any caps on the amount of damages that we can make an assessment of it in a court. So if somebody wants to file a $1 billion case in the county court at law in Dallas, they can do that. If they want to file a $500 case in the county court at law, they can do that. We also here, we've got three different kinds of jurisdiction. We have appellate jurisdiction from the Justice of the Peace and Small Claims Courts. Then we have our original county court jurisdiction, which is up to $250,000. And then we have that expanded jurisdiction that's unlimited concurrent with the district courts. So we hear a variety of different kinds of cases.
so.
Only civil, though. We're not
Okay.
dealing with any family law
Criminal,
issues. We're not dealing with juvenile issues. We're not dealing with criminal issues. And we don't deal with probate because Dallas County has statutory probate courts.
I see. I see. So one of the things that constantly keeps, I think, I would say jeopardizes, but it always makes I'll call them down ballot races. They're critical to our community, but folks sometimes get down and they just say, oh, I don't know that name, and they don't know that you're making a conscious election for somebody that's going to impact your life. How have you, one, you got to keep your judicial mane, you got to act like a judge, but how do you make people understand how critical it is that they pay attention to judicial races and how it impacts their lives?
Well, one of the things that I do when I speak with people out on the campaign trail, or even when I'm not on the campaign trail, and people ask about what judges do, or when you talk about down ballot races, what I tell people is the further down the ballot you are, the more impact those people have on your life. The president has very little direct impact on your life. Your senator, very little direct impact on your life. Your county commissioner, your district attorney, your judges, whether they be municipal, justice of the peace, county or district trial judges, those are the people that you're most likely to come into contact with. And so those are the people, and those are the races that you need to pay the most attention to, because those are the kitchen table issues. They're the family issues. If Bubba gets arrested, what's going to happen? Bubba's going to go to jail, right? And so you're going to have to get Bubba out of jail. You're going to have to post a bond, and he's going to have a hearing in a trial court before a magistrate or before a judge. If you're going to get a divorce, That's going to happen in a trial court. That's something that's local. So I think it's important, and that's one of the things that I stress with people when I talk with them, that what's important, most important, are those issues that are closest to you that you're going to most likely have contact with. And one of the other things that I do is when I have juries come in, I always tell them the importance of their jury service. Not just that they're there, but that their presence actually helps to solidify the validity of our judicial system. Because as long as they believe in the system and show up and participate, the system continues to be a viable way of resolving disputes. And what I find is a lot of times the jurors, they're reluctant to come in. But by the time they leave, they've bonded, they've made new friends for life, and they really take seriously the issues that are presented to them. And these are your neighbors. These are people that are going to have those same kitchen table issues that you're going to have. And so they're the most likely people to influence you and who you decide should be in charge of making the decisions about your life.
Okay. Is there anything that could be described as a typical disposition of a case? Is it always a monetary?
It depends on what kind of case you're talking
Okay.
about. A typical disposition, maybe an eviction case, will be different than a typical disposition in a car wreck case versus a typical disposition in a medical malpractice case.
Okay.
The majority of cases settle.
Okay.
I would say a good 90 to 95% of all cases settle.
Okay.
And that's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
They settle because the judicial system is there to help the parties move along that process. But what I always tell people is the most control you have over your case is when you make the decision to make a resolution with the other side. Because once the judge and the jury get a hold of it, it's like going to Vegas.
yeah, right.
It's a crapshoot. You're going to
right.
roll the dice. You
That's
don't
right.
have any guarantee on what the outcome is going to be.
That's right.
But if you agree to resolve the case, taking into consideration your needs and the needs of your opponent, then you're much more likely to walk away with an agreement that is beneficial to everyone and not one-sided.
One of the things that typically comes up, whether it's a criminal docket or a civil docket, is docket backlogs. Do you find that to be still a problem?
Well, let's talk about the concept of backlog to begin with.
Okay.
Courts naturally will have backlogs
Okay.
because your case is not resolved the day you file it.
That's right.
Depending on the type of case, some cases move faster, some are expedited, like an eviction case. We tend to move those cases in about 3 months. Some take longer. A minor car wreck case might take 6 months because the parties will settle. But one that's actually going to go to trial, it may take a year for the parties to get prepared for that case to go to trial. If it's going to be something more complex, like a business dispute, where you have IBM suing Xerox, excuse me, that may take a year and a half
right.
or 3 years to prepare. So naturally, the way cases are filed, there will be a lag in time between the time the case is filed and the time the case is resolved. Now, since COVID, we've had more backlog. And so that kind of backlog, what you're talking about, is during the time that we were unable to try cases, there were cases that would ordinarily have been tried that did not get tried because of the pandemic. So that is a different type of backlog than the regular expectation of a case being filed and resolved in court.
Okay.
With the county courts, one of the things that we're experiencing right now is an increase in appeals from the justice of the peace courts. Because during COVID, and even now, there are programs available where individuals can delay their eviction by receiving funds from rent relief or from the Texas Eviction Diversion Program. As those funds run out, or those individuals' eligibility for those funds run out, then cases get filed in the JP court, and then they get appealed to the county court. So we're seeing, I think the last time I looked, we had a 40% increase in appeals from the Justice of the Peace Court,
Okay.
which is a backlog. And one of the things that I have done to address that, I recently finished my term as local administrative county judge for the county courts at law. That's all of the county courts. But anticipating that we were going to have this problem with a backlog of cases from the JP Court, plus the cases that we were unable to try during the majority of the pandemic, I worked with the Commissioners Court to have a backlog court established for the county courts. And we're in the process of getting that up and running. And so we'll have 3 full-time visiting judges to assist us in resolving matters. And they'll be taking on the more expedited matters because that will give the elected judges the opportunity to hear the longer, more complicated cases and to clear our dockets simultaneously with the help of the visiting judges.
And you say you were the administrative judge, so that was all the county courts at law,
Correct.
right? And there are 5?
No, no, it's not just the county courts at law. It's
All
of
of the courts. All
all
I
of the
got you.
county
Okay.
courts.
Okay.
So that would be the criminal
and
the civil
Okay.
and the
Oh
probate.
my goodness, bless your heart.
Right. It's a position that goes back and forth between the various court groups.
Right, okay.
And so you get elected by your peers to do that. And I had the fortune, and good fortune for me, of being the local administrative judge during the majority of the COVID pandemic.
Okay. Are you the judge that says don't bring that in my court? Are you,
Don't bring what in
what
my
kind
court.
of cases? What kind of cases that you just want the people to go back and try to settle?
Well, I want them to go back and try and settle all cases
cases.
unless there's just a really significant issue that requires a court or a jury.
Okay.
You know, bringing the citizens down is an inconvenience. It's an important part of our justice system. And there are cases that simply have to have a neutral party to decide them because the facts are such that it can go either way. The law is such that it may require an interpretation from the judge before you can get to that ruling. So there are always cases like that, but there are always cases where the parties are best taken care of by reaching a resolution on their own.
Okay. Have you found, since you've been on the bench, that there is a broader understanding or appreciation for the work that you do?
I think that depends on who you are. There are, I think, the citizens that appear before me, the litigants for the most part that appear before me, I think they appreciate the work I do.
Okay.
There is a group of attorneys that were used to doing things a certain way before I came on the bench. It was the JUST-US instead of JUST-ICE. And I think what I brought to the bench when I came was the expectation of JUST-ICE for everyone. And so when you bring in a change, what is they say, a new broom sweeps clean, there are always those that are uncomfortable with it. And if it impacts them financially because they weren't used to having to earn their fee and they now have to earn it, there's going to be some dissatisfaction. You would think, though, that over time that would dissipate. But I think perhaps there's a core of people that are just resentful and don't want to move on.
Right.
They don't like change. And many of us don't like change, I get that. But we either adapt or we die. That's the law of nature.
That's right. So I think we all got a collective boost to our, again, our royal collective egos with the ascendancy of, if you will, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court. And we know here in Dallas County, there was a virtual landslide of black female judges elected. We think that's good, and it is, it brings to the forefront those issues you just described, that people are resistant to change. Have you seen, besides what you just described, have you noticed that justice becomes more and more ICE than US?
Yes, but let me put a little bit different perspective on it.
Okay.
When I was elected back in 2006, I didn't know this, but at the time that I was elected, I was the first independently elected African American on a civil bench in the history of Dallas County.
Wow, okay.
Now, why is that important? There had been African Americans on criminal benches and family benches. Those benches don't deal with money.
That's right.
I mean, family do, but not that
Not-
many.
right.
But this was a bench where decisions about money were being made. And there were people that were not used to seeing someone who looked like me making decisions about money. And I think my election opened the door to other judges of color who said, well, if she can do it, I can do it too. And as far as the US versus ICE, I think we are seeing more justice because the perspective you bring to the bench is the perspective from which you make your decisions. And sometimes if you make your decisions in a vacuum, because that's all you know, you have no idea of the impact that your decision makes. A great example would be in the biography on Thurgood Marshall. He talked about a case that came before the Supreme Court that had to do with it was a small administrative fee. I think it was $20. And all of he was the only black justice on the Supreme Court at that time. All of his colleagues seemed to think that the $20 fee was not that big of a deal. But what he pointed out to them, even though he did end up being on the losing side of that case, was that some people didn't have $20. They said $20, that's the cost of 2 movie tickets. He said some people can't afford to go to the movies. And so that was a perspective that Thurgood Marshall brought to the Supreme Court that I think people of color can bring to the bench as well. And so I think it makes us more cognizant of not only the majority world, but the impact on the minority world as well.
Very good. Well, here is your chance to talk directly to the viewers and readers of the Dallas Examiner, appealing for your return to County Court at Law Number 1.
Ladies and gentlemen of Dallas County, I thank you for this opportunity to chat with you tonight, to give you an opportunity to learn a little bit more about me. As I said, I was the first independently elected African American on the civil bench in Dallas County. That brought with it a great deal of responsibility, opportunity, and a way to bring to the people an understanding that when they brought their disputes to the court, that they would be heard regardless of where they came from. I continue to run my court in that manner. I think it's important that everyone that comes in gets treated with dignity and respect, regardless of whether or not you can have an attorney or afford an attorney. So a vote for me is a vote for dignity and respect for the citizens that come into County Court at Law Number 1. And so I would appreciate your vote. I have been on this bench since 2007. I'm running for my 5th term.
All right.
At this point in time, actually when I was elected, I didn't know this either. I was the first woman judge ever elected to County Court at Law Number 1.
Oh, man.
And County Court at Law Number 1 in Dallas, Texas is the oldest county court at law in the state of Texas.
Oh, my goodness.
It was created in 1906. I was elected in 2006
Wow.
on the 100th, in the 100th year of the court.
That's beautiful.
And so at this point in time, I have been the only woman to serve on that bench, and I am the longest serving. So I would appreciate the opportunity to continue to bring justice to everyone in Dallas County.
Outstanding. Judge Demetria Benson, incumbent, Dallas County Court at Law Number 1. Thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with you shortly with the next segment of Monday Night Politics, brought to you by the Dallas Examiner.